Most men never notice the exact moment they lose respect at work, because it rarely happens all at once. It happens quietly. In meetings where nobody reacts to their ideas, in conversations where people interrupt them without hesitation, in offices where they work harder than everyone else, yet somehow feel invisible. And the dangerous part is this: most of the behaviors that destroy professional respect don't look obviously weak. They look normal, friendly, helpful, safe, polite. But in high-level professional environments, perception is psychological. People are constantly scanning for emotional signals. Who looks composed under pressure? Who needs validation? Who controls the room without asking for attention? And this is where many men quietly sabotage themselves. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack talent, but because their behavior unintentionally communicates insecurity. Workplaces are status environments, not in the dramatic movie sense, in the subtle human sense. Every interaction becomes a signal. The way you speak, the way you enter a room, how quickly you react emotionally, how desperately you try to be liked. People may never consciously say it out loud, but they feel it. And once respect drops psychologically, recovering it becomes extremely difficult. Because competence alone does not create authority. A man can be highly skilled and still appear weak. You've probably seen this before. The employee who always says, yes, always available, always explaining himself, always trying to prove his value. Yet somehow, nobody fully respects him. Meanwhile, another man speaks less, remains calm, sets boundaries naturally, and people instinctively treat him differently. Executives notice this immediately, because leadership presence is not built through effort alone. It's built through emotional positioning. Most men think respect comes from being impressive. But mature professionals understand something deeper. Respect often comes from emotional stability, and emotionally unstable behavior appears in ways men rarely recognize. Over-explaining, talking too much in meetings, laughing nervously, seeking constant agreement, responding emotionally to small criticism, trying too hard to appear important. Attention and authority are not the same thing. In fact, men who chase attention often lose authority fastest, because desperation is visible, even when words sound confident. Human beings are extremely sensitive to emotional congruence. If your behavior says, "I need everyone to approve of me," people feel it. And approval seeking quietly lowers professional status, especially among senior leadership, because leaders are trusted to remain centered under social pressure. This is why calm men often appear more powerful. Not louder men, calmer men. Men who do not rush to fill silence. Men who can disagree without emotional tension. Men who do not panic when they are misunderstood. That emotional control signals internal security. And security creates presence. This becomes painfully obvious in meetings. Watch what happens when someone receives pushback. One man instantly defends himself, starts talking faster, explains every detail. His energy becomes reactive. Another man pauses, breathes, clarifies his point calmly. No emotional leakage. The room immediately feels the difference. And this is where workplace psychology becomes uncomfortable, because many men unintentionally communicate low status through overperformance. They think, if I prove my value enough, people will respect me. But excessive proving usually signals self-doubt. High-value professionals rarely force their importance into the room. Their behavior assumes value quietly. That assumption changes everything. You see it in their posture, their pacing, their tone, even their wardrobe choices. Not flashy, not desperate for attention. Intentional, simple, controlled. Because mature professionalism is about reducing noise, and insecurity creates noise everywhere. Too many words, too much reacting, too much explaining, too much eagerness. Trying too hard usually signals insecurity, and executives often see this very differently than younger employees realize. Many young professionals believe visibility creates respect, but senior leaders often trust consistency more than charisma. The man who remains emotionally reliable becomes psychologically valuable, especially under pressure, because pressure reveals identity. Anyone can appear confident when everything feels easy. Real executive presence appears during tension, during disagreement, during uncertainty. And most men lose respect the moment emotions begin controlling their behavior, not because they explode dramatically. Sometimes it's subtler than that. Defensiveness, passive aggression, neediness disguised as friendliness, constantly seeking reassurance after decisions. Quiet insecurity changes how people experience your presence, even if they cannot explain why. Here's something almost nobody says openly in corporate environments. People often decide how much respect to give you before evaluating your actual competence. That sounds unfair, because it is. But psychology operates faster than logic. Humans assess emotional cues instantly. Who appears grounded? Who appears anxious? Who appears socially dependent? And once someone mentally categorizes you as emotionally weak, every future interaction gets filtered through that perception. This is why rebuilding professional respect can feel nearly impossible. You are no longer fighting performance issues. You are fighting identity perception. And identity perception changes slowly. There's a reason certain men naturally command rooms without dominating them. It's not magic, it's restraint. Most men speak to reduce tension. Powerful men tolerate tension comfortably. That changes how people listen to them. A calm pause after making a point often sounds more authoritative than 10 additional sentences. Silence communicates confidence when it comes from emotional control. But insecure men fear silence, because silence feels like loss of approval. So they keep talking, and talking, and slowly dilute their own authority. This becomes especially dangerous in modern office culture, where many men confuse friendliness with respect. Being approachable matters, but excessive accessibility destroys perceived value. If everyone feels unlimited access to your time, attention, and emotional energy, your presence loses weight. Boundaries create psychological structure, and structure creates respect. There's a major difference between being kind and being approval dependent. Strong professionals help others without emotionally attaching themselves to validation. That distinction changes careers, and this is where many men experience a painful realization. They spend years trying to be liked, when respected men are usually focused on being reliable, composed, and effective. Likability creates social comfort, but calm competence creates professional trust. Trust is what creates influence, not performance theater, not forced confidence, not pretending to be an alpha male. In fact, the loudest men in offices are often the least secure. Real confidence usually looks quieter, more disciplined, more emotionally economical. A man with true executive presence rarely needs to announce his value repeatedly. People feel it, because his behavior remains consistent regardless of external pressure. That consistency becomes magnetic. And there's another uncomfortable truth. Your appearance affects this more than most men want to admit. Not fashion in the shallow sense, professional signaling, wrinkled clothing, poor grooming, chaotic presentation, overly flashy outfits. These things communicate psychological disorganization. Meanwhile, clean simplicity communicates control, and control is deeply associated with leadership. This is why minimalism often looks expensive, not because simplicity costs more, because restraint signals confidence. A disciplined appearance tells people, "I do not need excess to establish value." That quiet certainty changes perception immediately, especially in executive environments. But external presentation only works when internal behavior matches it. A polished appearance with emotionally needy behavior creates contradiction. People sense that instantly. Executive presence is alignment, calm voice, clear boundaries, composed reactions, intentional appearance, emotional discipline. Together, these create psychological authority. And authority changes how opportunities move toward you. Promotions, leadership trust, high-level networking, important conversations. Most of these decisions happen emotionally before they happen logically. That's the part many men never realize. The workplace is not only evaluating your output, it is evaluating your emotional weight. Can people trust your stability? Can you handle pressure without becoming reactive? Can you disagree without losing composure? Can you lead without needing constant recognition? Because leadership is emotional containment, not emotional performance. And mature masculinity understands this deeply. The strongest men in professional environments are rarely the most aggressive. They are usually the most centered, the least reactive, the least desperate to prove themselves. That inner calm creates external gravity. People feel safe around it. They trust it. They follow it naturally. And once you understand this, your entire relationship with work begins changing. You stop chasing validation. Stop over-explaining. Stop trying to win every room. Instead, you begin building something far more powerful. Presence. A calm, disciplined identity that communicates value before you even speak. And ironically, that is often when respect finally starts increasing. Because professional respect is rarely demanded. It is observed. Quietly. Over time. Through consistency. Through emotional control. Through disciplined behavior repeated daily. Your appearance will never replace competence. But it absolutely changes how quickly people recognize it. And your emotional discipline determines whether that recognition turns into trust. The men who rise highest professionally are not always the smartest men in the room. Often, they are the men who learned how to remain emotionally composed, while everyone else unconsciously leaks insecurity. That composure becomes power. Quiet power. The kind that doesn't beg for attention. The kind that makes people listen more carefully when you speak. The kind that changes the energy of a room without forcing it. And once a man develops that presence, people stop seeing him as just another employee. They begin seeing him as leadership. If you want to build stronger executive presence, deeper professional confidence, and become the kind of man people naturally respect in modern workplaces, subscribe for more videos on workplace psychology, masculine professionalism, and leadership presence.